We're delighted to be invited to present this webinar on the back of Mental Health Awareness Week, and we'll be looking at the various ways we can use music to support well-being and our mental health. We've sought to frame this particularly in light of the current isolation measures brought about from COVID-19, but also more broadly for day-to-day well-being. So whether we're in or out of lockdown, we hope this content will equip you with some new creative ideas that you can use to support you. So as I mentioned just before we started, we are going to have a group exercise shortly. So you might like to have to hand a paper and some pens or pencils and things like that for that exercise. In terms of the content, we're going to begin by looking at some strategies to support our mental health, and that's going to include a brief introduction to our Music for Wellbeing Pact. We're then going to have an opportunity to do one of the exercises from that resource. That's where we're going to need our pen and paper. And don't worry, you don't need to be a musician. This resource is accessible for everybody. We're then going to present some case studies of what music therapy has looked like in lockdown and share some of the ways we've been able to use digital solutions to continue supporting some of the most vulnerable people in our communities. And we're then going to end with telling you a little bit about our weekly free offers that you can access, as well as our other digital services. Just a reminder, if you're not already on mute, I don't know, that might be us, but I just wanted to check, make sure you're on mute. Brilliant. Okay, so let's think about some different ways that we can be using music. So if we think about music listening, we're all aware of the profound effect that music can have on our emotions. When we're feeling low, the mirror neuron theory is something we can use to our advantage when trying to elevate our mood. So studies show that mirror neurons can be activated when listening to music, meaning our mood can end up reflecting the track that we are listening to. So if we're in a particularly low mood, it might not feel appropriate to suddenly start playing an upbeat or energized song. So in this instance, listening to something reflective can be a useful strategy to help boost our mood with an initial surge of dopamine, and that helps elevate mood before we move on to exploring other music. We can also use music to support relaxation. So listening to music we enjoy can help lower our blood pressure, slow our heart rate, and reduce stress hormones. Classical music has been found to induce relaxation and increase dopamine, but as music is subjective, anything that you personally find calming will also have these physiological benefits and will help to reduce symptoms like anxiety. So personalization is really key here. So this is where things like individualized playlists can prove really valuable. Singing. Whether you restrict your singing to the shower or you're prone to some karaoke outbursts throughout the day, singing increases important antibodies and endorphins, the happy brain chemical, as well as reducing stress hormones. This is also true of musical instruments and playing those. So whether you consider yourself a singer or not, do consider making this part of your daily discipline to support your mental health. A few minutes of doing that, the physiological benefits can be really, really useful. So whether you're doing that whilst you're waiting for your cup of tea or your kettle to boil, or you're in the shower, or you're driving to see somebody, all of those things can be some really accessible strategies to integrate every day. And then, of course, moving to music, we know that exercise is inherently good for our mental and physical well-being. So dancing to music can be an excellent way to do this. Advances in neuroimaging mean we now know that nothing else stimulates so many different areas of the brain simultaneously as music. So even if you're not dancing, music still affects the regions that control the movement centers in our brain. So whether you dance, clap, or tap your feet, it's all great exercise for both body and mind. So apart from listening to music, singing, dancing or moving, what else can we do? Well, let us introduce you to our Music for Wellbeing pack. Our Music for Wellbeing pack is designed to support emotional well-being and to help build resilience during this particularly challenging time. For those feeling overwhelmed, stressed or anxious during lockdown, our experienced team of music therapists have created a host of downloadable resources. The 14-day programme can be completed on consecutive days or spread over a number of weeks. And with each activity lasting only 10 minutes, we hope it will equip users with new ideas to strengthen and manage their self-care routine in an accessible way. Let's view a short video about the packs to find out more.
Take 10 minutes for yourself today. As therapists, we know what it's like to give a lot of ourselves. And sometimes it's a challenge to take a little me time. We wanted to create something for people who are finding things difficult.
I'm fully shielding with my parents at the moment, so everyone is 30 miles away.
Homeschooling 2 children as a single parent, trying to work from home.
Some days my mood is erratic or low, and because of the lockdown, I can't do the things I usually would to pick myself back up.
Like many other people, I am in lockdown and isolated.
I had been offered another job. My start date at the new job was pushed back indefinitely. I'm not really sure where I'm going to be, where the money's going to be coming in from, kind of what my days are going to be looking like.
I think there is an assumption that disabled and chronically ill people are kind of pros at this, but it's having those extra little kind of glimmers of light and fun just take it away is really challenging.
I mean, missing my family. Okay, I can FaceTime them, but I just miss giving them a hug, really.
If I go outside, I find myself incredibly anxious.
I also live on my own, so I am in isolation from everyone that I love and care about.
Sometimes it's just a bit overwhelming.
I've definitely had to adjust the way that I deal with keeping mentally healthy.
I thought the Wellness Pack a really great idea and enjoyable.
For anyone who needs to take some time for themselves.
People like me.
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 People like me. People like me.
People like me.
So take 10 minutes today and let us help people like you.
And I'm really, really excited to get outside again.
And maybe I can get my hair done.
So the pack features a host of different ways of using music for relaxation, creative exercises to support self-expression, and the building blocks of songwriting to support emotional self-care and well-being. Each day uses different kinds of music to support the activities, and people are supported to create their own playlists should they wish to. We've also created some different playlists on Spotify specifically to be used alongside the activities, and these are highlighted clearly throughout the pack. We also detail what equipment, if any, will be needed, as you can see on the slide here. So let's have a chance to try some of these activities together. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce you to Clea, who hopefully will turn on her camera and unmute so that we can see her.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, there you go, Clea.
You see me, yeah? So you might have seen in the video, if you noticed, there was a guided drawing exercise, and we're going to try that out today together. So this is where your pen and paper might come in handy. As Elizabeth said, you don't need to be a musician to take part in this pack, in this exercise. or to use the Pact. And you also don't need to be an artist, so don't worry about that side of things either. So what we're going to do is an exercise in guided drawing where I'm going to play some music for you. And what I would like you to do is to close your eyes for the sort of first 20 seconds or so of the music. And when you feel ready to, when you feel comfortable, open your eyes again and start making some markings on the paper. So this can be anything, it can be abstract, it can be more specific images if you like. But what I'd like you to do is try and visualize the music. So try and think how you might represent how the music sounds on the paper. So this could be using different colors, this could be using kind of different lines, shapes, anything that you feel kind of represents the music, how you want to do it. So we'll get started. We're only going to do this for a few minutes, so just see what you can do, and afterwards we'll just reflect on that a little bit. Okay, so you should be able to see the screen. The instructions are on there if you need them. Okay, so now that we've finished the music, I'd like you to take a look at what you've drawn and maybe think about what elements you like about the drawing or the marks that you've made on the paper, maybe things that you might do differently next time. Do you feel that what you've drawn represents the music that you heard? And how did it feel to experience that, to take part in that exercise? Did it feel relaxing? Did it feel enjoyable? Did it feel uncomfortable? It's okay, you know, whatever that experience was for you. But it's really good to just notice that and just to think about how it impacted on you. If you feel like you want to share anything in the chat, then feel free to do that, but it's okay if you don't want to as well. It's more important to just notice it for yourself and think about how it was for you. So we also would like to share, this is our director at Chiltern, who took part in one of our Facebook Live sessions where we did this exercise. And as you'll see on the screen, her usual kind of doodles that she might make during meetings or during phone calls is at the bottom. You can see it's quite a heavy pen, quite close, you know, she says tight knit, stressed out lines, crossing lines. And it's very different to the image above that, which is what she did during the guided drawing exercise. How it's there's a lot more open space, and it's a lot more sort of flowing together. So just interesting to see the contrast in those things, really, and how it can be quite a different experience doing it to some music and taking some time out to really consciously do some doodling rather than you know, what you might do out of habit during a meeting. So we're going to talk a little bit as well about different tips for starting to do some songwriting. So you may or may not have written any songs before, but there's a few different things that you can do to kind of try different elements of the songwriting process. And all of this is done with kind of well-being in mind, rather than writing a song that's maybe going to be the next like #1 hit. It's really important to think about, you know, why we're using songs, and if it helps with your expression of your emotions, then that's, you know, a really valid reason to do it. So this tip is about finding someone else's words that apply to how you're feeling. So that could be another song, for example. So you know, I think it's really good to be in the habit of listening to songs and thinking about what bits you like about them, what things you know, what things help you as part of those songs. So this is a song that I've been listening to a lot recently, which I'm going to sing for you now. I definitely listen to lyrics a lot when I listen to songs, so I find that that's something that really helps me with my own well-being. So I'll sing this for you now, and then maybe we'll think about how I might use that afterwards. I remember standing on the edge, closing my eyes, counting to 3. I jump in with the rush in my head, only to find the water was concrete, and now you're pumping air to my lungs. This don't feel anything like sinking. In fact, no matter how deep I go into you, it looks like the water is crystal clear. Crystal clear, I won't give in to the fear. Crystal clear, won't give in to the fear. Crystal clear, I won't give in to the fear. Crystal clear. So for me, I feel like the words in that song and the melody really kind of fit together, but sometimes it might be that the words of a song really stand out to you, but the music maybe doesn't. So it's okay to experiment with that and think how you might change that so that the whole song together feels like something that is going to really help you at this time. And singing that through to even just at home on your own to yourself can be a really good way to boost your mood. So this next tip is about finding music to go along with words that maybe you've created. So a good exercise for this is to write a song parody. And I'm sure you've heard or seen lots of song parodies before, But it's just really worth bearing in mind for if you want to try songwriting, if you want to try sort of that type of creative expression, that it's a really good way to do that without having to have maybe a lot of musical skill, or to have, if you don't feel like being creative in that way. So one thing to do is to find a song and change the words. And this is something we do with our clients quite a lot in music therapy. So taking this as an example, If I Could Turn Back Time by Cher. So as you can see, we've blanked out some of the words. And this is a really good way of kind of prompting yourself to maybe think about things in a different way. So with this song, it might be that you say, instead of "if I could turn back time," if you wanted to fit it to the current situation, for example, you could say something like, "If I could go outside, if I could see you again, I'd take back all those things I took for granted." And you could carry on in that way and think about how you might fill in those blanks to make it something that, applies to you and feels relevant for you. So that's a really good way of doing it. And you can do this with, any song that you like, that you know well. It can be a really good way to test out writing some lyrics before you kind of try and put lyrics and music together. So this slide is an example of a parody. So this, some of the lyrics in this parody are a little bit dark, to do with, the current climate. And the purpose of this was to really notice how someone was kind of, doing some of the things that weren't actually that helpful for them. So, being on their phone all the time, even though that wasn't actually helping their well-being, and just noticing kind of how things had changed. So I'm going to sing this for you now. I think it's also worth saying that you don't always have to change loads of the words. Sometimes it can be really interesting just to change a couple of words and see how that might change the meaning. And that's kind of what's been done with this one. I spend too much time in my room. Don't want to give corona to you. I like to be alone, but it's bad for me to spend 14 whole days in my room. I spend too much time on my phone. I know I said I liked being alone, but I need to see the death count every day. So I spend too much time on my phone. So as you can see with that one, not very many of the words from the original lyrics were actually changed, but it was a really good way to just notice some of the bad habits, and sort of reflect on that and be able to change those habits. So just to summarize, these are some of the tips for songwriting for well-being. So we've already talked about taking an element of a song from somewhere else and changing another part to it. So either choosing a melody and writing different lyrics, different words, or choosing the words from somewhere else and changing the music. And so a couple of other tips, setting yourself a time limit can be really useful. Sometimes it can feel like a really daunting task to create something from scratch. But actually setting yourself maybe 10 minutes just to see what you come up with can be a really good way to kind of focus your mind on the task at hand. And then lastly, I think it's really important to be brave and be honest about about you know, with the words that you're writing. And remember that no one else has to hear your song. If you feel like it's not something you want to share, then that's absolutely fine. But equally, it can be really good to share any songs that you have created. You know, especially if you're finding it difficult to talk about something in particular, then writing a song about it and sharing that with someone else can be a really, really good way to use songwriting.
Thank you, Clea. It's great to be able to slow down a little bit and explore using music, even in some simple ways visually. I never do any drawing, so I certainly feel more relaxed having had the opportunity to do that together. I'm going to share my screen again now, so just give me a moment to do that. So we've had the opportunity there to think about some ways we might use music to support us. But I'd love to share a little bit with you now at how we've been using music therapy to continue supporting others during this time, particularly looking at how music therapy is able to support emotional well-being as well as a host of other areas. We're delighted we've been able to continue providing music therapy digitally, and we've also increased our online offers to include things like online songwriting lessons and online music sessions and lessons too. So I'm now going to present sort of 3 mini case studies of different ways we've been working with clients in lockdown to support their emotional well-being. And the first client I'm going to introduce you to is called Julia. So Julia has an acquired brain injury with cerebral palsy, and she is non-verbal. And some of the shared goals we have within her therapy team are to support her to bring her left arm into the middle, so in towards midline, as part of developing reliable use of a switch and other augmentative alternative communication devices to support her communication, as well as give her opportunities to control her environment. So switches can have messages recorded into them, or they can act like buttons that we can use to, for example, turn on a light or turn on the television. So we're also working on cause and effect, and we hope that we might work towards her being able to use a switch like this to make reliable yes/no choices when she's out in the community. So in this particular clip, we are using a Big Mac switch. So how does work like this? What does it look like over Zoom? Let's take a look.
Hey! Hi! Good. It's Liz. You gonna sing a song?
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe what we could try is I can sing, I'll sing the Hello song through a couple of times, and then maybe what we could do is, even just at this stage, we could see, I'll leave some set opportunities for Julia to say hello.
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Should we put hello on the switch?
Yeah, so if you can record a hello into the switch, we'll sing the song as normal initially, and then I'll give some really exaggerated cues for when Julia can join in. Hello, Julia. Welcome to Music Hello, Julia. Oh, hello. Yeah. Hello, Julia.
that's a little introduction to Julia. In this next clip, we'll see our colleague Kate working with an 8-year-old boy who's non-verbal and has developmental delay in all areas due to a birth injury. Some aims for their work together include developing his use of voice and breath support, developing social and communication skills, and increasing his capacity to sustain attention with minimal support. So in this clip, we'll see Kate singing a familiar song where he is prompted to play the recorder each time she pauses, which is supporting him to maintain attention through cause and effect, follow musical and gestural cues, and motivate him to use the recorder purposefully to engage in shared play and support his breath support for use of voice too.
Aurelian has his recorder, Kate has her guitar, and we're going to start by singing Oh When the Saints. And we'll see what other songs we can sing today. But we're going to start with this one. Okay, Aurelian, are you ready to play? Oh, when the saints go marching. Oh, when the saints go marching in, I wanna be in that number. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Fantastic, Aurelian. Are we ready for some more?
Okay. So the final short video I'm going to share is based on us using a technique from neurologic music therapy, which is called musical mnemonics training. So this essentially capitalizes on the fact that melodic and rhythmic information is stored differently in our brain, and it's also retrieved differently in our brain. So anyone who's ever tried adding a rhythm or a melody to help you recall a phone number or a formula, perhaps for an exam back in school, part of the reason that's so effective is when we add music to functional information, it makes it more memorable. And this particular technique within neurologic music therapy can be used in a procedural way as part of supporting clients to recall various information that they need day to day. That can be hugely important when, perhaps due to a brain injury, people might be very reliant on visual prompts from a weekly planner or a diary, or verbal prompts from a support worker or a partner to help them recall events or things that are happening every day. That could be really functional, like when to take their medication and appointments, or meaningful information such as their children's birthdays or their wedding anniversary. So in this particular clip, we'll see the result of having worked with a client with a brain injury during lockdown, using this technique to support him to remember some regular events in his week.
Can you tell me one of the rhythms that we've learned together? Yeah, today or last week?
Wow. I want to say, and I might be wrong, but I think the first one is 11 o'clock on Thursday for David Gray.
Fantastic. Yes. And what's happening tomorrow?
OT session and 30 Wednesday.
you've retained that after a week as well.
So even in those clips that we've seen there, we've seen use of adaptive technology, using instruments, and then really functional techniques as well. And whilst they're working on a host of other aims, supporting emotional well-being and people's mental health is always at the core of what we're doing. So I think particularly for that last client, equipping him with another strategy that enables him to be more independent had an enormous impact on his emotional well-being, particularly at a time when he's vulnerable, he's isolated and less able to see family and friends. To know he can continue working on some of his rehab goals was really motivating for him. So in addition to our Music for Wellbeing packs, we also offer our SEN-friendly Get Creative packs for parents and children, and our dementia-friendly care home packs, which are also suitable for older people and those living alone. And more info on each of these can be viewed in the digital services section of our website. Every week we use Facebook Live to run a series of free sessions and events, including, and I know Clea touched on this when she shared that extract picture from Rosie, our director, that includes our Take a Breath Music for Wellbeing sessions, which take place every Tuesday at 12:30. We also have our mini Chilton's parent and toddler groups at 3 p.m. every Thursday, and our Chilton Sings videos. And all of these can be joined live or rewatched or repeated later. So if you would value taking a breath at any point, do search our videos section on our Facebook page to browse our library of previous sessions. So we've had a chance to think about some of the different ways we might use music. We've talked about using music listening to elevate mood, to support us to relax. We've emphasised the importance of things like personalised playlists. We've touched on the physiological benefits of singing or playing instruments and how to integrate that as part of our daily routine to manage our mental health as part of self-care. We've talked about fun ways of using music and movement or exercise or dancing. And we've had the chance to look at guided drawing, visualising music, as well as thinking about the benefits of using songwriting and song parody to support self-expression. So I hope as an introduction, it's given a few new ideas and creative ways of accessibly thinking about using music to support our own mental health, as well as those around us, and supporting our own internal harmony using music. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to come back to Sophie and see if we can open this up for discussion or some questions now.
Okay. So I think if you have any questions or anything that you would like to contribute, you can either pop it into that chat screen or unmute yourself for a moment and let us have your thoughts. It's a bit intimidating when there's so many people.
I wonder, Sophie, if you might like to share how you found doing some of the drawing or listening to Clea.
Oh, it's so nice, isn't it, actually? Like on a Friday, I tend to find that working from home, you never really take a break. You just kind of work all day. And then come Friday afternoon, I'm super fractious and a little bit like a toddler, really. So it's just really nice, I think, to take a couple of minutes to relax your shoulders a bit and breathe and think about something else. So yeah, I wish I could clock off now, actually.
Well, I think one of the reasons we've used kind of the 10-minute structure in the packs is I know certainly, and I can attest to this personally, it often takes me a couple of minutes at least to really begin to unwind if I'm engaging in, a 10-minute activity, the first couple of minutes I'm sort of getting myself sorted, and then there is something about relaxing into it. And I've had the opportunity to try some of these activities in the Take a Breath sessions, and I found that really valuable as a way of helping structure my day and break up some meaningful times when I can have just a few moments for myself. And particularly, as you say, when we're working from home, we perhaps don't have somebody there that might be checking in to say, might be time to stop for a few minutes and regroup, and actually maybe deciding to designate 10 minutes in the morning and in the afternoon and do a music-based activity can be really valuable creatively, but also, as we've seen, kind of all the physiological benefits that go along with just taking that time can be really useful too.
Okay. I think maybe there aren't any questions. Stop me if you do have a question. I hope there's no one who's got themselves on mute and they're shouting into the ether and we can't get them. Shall we say that, Elizabeth? I think, look, if there was anything that came up today that you do have any questions about, please don't hesitate to send me an email. Also, if you want some contact details or recommendations around Chiltern or anything like that, please don't hesitate to contact either myself or Elizabeth. We'd be more than happy to address those.
Sounds great. Well, we'd just like to say a real big thank you for joining us online this afternoon, and big thank you to Claire as well for providing our exercise music too. And yeah, wish you all very well and hope this has been useful for you.
Absolutely. Have a lovely weekend.